Let's test the failure case for registration. In the register.spec.js, we'll add a new case. It should return a 422 if registration fails. In this case, what we want to test is, if a user already exists in the database, then that user should not be saved again. This is what we are going to do by saying await user.create, and I'm just going to copy this user object so we can use it again. I'll just create a user variable and assign that to it, and for this test we'll pass user, and here I'm going to pass user. So I've created that user to our database. Then I'm going to make an API request to register this user again. So await app.post to the registration endpoint, which is API v1 auth register. And for refactoring purposes, we probably might create a constant at the top called register endpoint and assign this path to it. And then we can make a post request to the register endpoint directly. And that's because if you're going to have about 10 different tests for the registration process, then you don't want to write that over and over. Then we're going to send the same user details to the API. Then for our expectation, we're going to expect, most importantly, the status to be a 422. Then would expect the response.body.message to be validation failed. Before we move on with the test, I'd like you to notice something. If you look at all my tests, they are broken down into 3, and this is actually done unconsciously. Look at this, either 2 steps and there's always a space, or there's a 3 steps. Now this is what I do. I separate all tests into 3 different phases: the preparation step, the action step, and then the assertion step. And this is the rule of thumb for all tests, or most tests you're gonna have. The preparation step is where you set up what is required for that test, and this is the format that most of your tests are going to take, if not all. The preparation step is where you set up all you need for that test. In this case, we need to create a user. Next, we have the action step, where we perform the action we want to test in this test. And finally, we have the assertion step, where we run our assertions. Okay? And I don't think we're supposed to be assigning this variable here. Okay, so that's it. If we go to the register validator, this is where the validation is performed. You can see the message that is returned if the user's email has already been taken. And there's a data property with an errors property that has an object with errors. So we can also use that format to assert. So we can expect response.body.data.errors to equal email that says this email has already been taken. Now let's run our test. And the test passes successfully. And as usual, to make sure your test is not just passing, but is actually passing by confirming the assertions, you can change something in your file and watch the test fail. So right now it's asserting that this should be equal to this, but since we've changed it, it fails. And now we put it back, run a test again, and now it succeeds.